Hello and welcome on in to our second episode here on the Classic Pro Wrestling with the WFIA podcast. I am Chris DiCarlo. Up above me is the man with class from Rhode Island, Mr. Mike, the Class DiGregorio. Hello, sir.
How are you?
And our producer and friend, Mr. the one and only player, Mr. Benny Scala.
And I have no class. Keep that in mind.
Still. 2 weeks in a row. Right. And our special guest this week is a wrestler who's been through many territories, knows the business, still active, has his own podcast too. We're going to ask him about a legend in the business, Mr. Bob Cook.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And I like that intro. That was cool. You got to show me how to do
that. Well, before we jump into you, Mr. Cook, sir, Benny, if you will, put up that picture. We have to say our condolences. It was sad to hear of Mr. Bill Mercer, longtime Texas world-class championship wrestling announcer, broadcaster. He was definitely one of the greats indeed. And what a career. He definitely will be missed. So our condolences go out to his family and friends. And man, they're all leaving us.
One of the best ever, I think. How old was he? I think he was like 99 or something like that.
I'm not sure of the age, but yeah, man.
He was up there.
He was 99.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was 99 once, but I didn't like it, so I gave it up.
Oh, boy. So, So on with the show here. Mr. Cook is our guest, and why don't you tell our fans what you're doing now with your podcast, and we can check it out on YouTube and Facebook, and then we'll go back a little bit in time.
Well, a friend of mine put together a little thing where I live called Twisted Wrestling Alliance Studios. We got a ring, we can seat, about 50 people. It's like an old school studio wrestling show that we put together, and we just happened to have all the equipment and the situation to do a podcast. One day I was just sitting around going, hey, I got nothing going on, let's do a podcast. So we tried it, and we're just having fun with it. I've had some cool guests, the Cuban Assassin Fidel Sierra, the legendary Cuban Assassin was on it the other day. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to a thing in tomorrow called GrappleCon in Tampa, where Abdullah Butcher's going to be there, Arn Anderson, and some others. I'm going to try to do a remote with some of them, hopefully. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. They might be going, who? No, I'm just kidding. Arn knows who I am. But maybe even if it's just 15 minutes, you sit there and talk with Arn, off to the side or in the hotel room or whatever. And it's good cred, street cred, baby. Awesome, Instead of 14 views, I'll get 13. It'll go down, and I'll go, why did I waste my time doing this? Because I didn't get no extra views. Unbelievable.
Awesome.
But I tried.
Our friend of the show, he'll be on next week. Another two of them from GrappleCon will be on with us next week. Mr. Barry Rose and Mr. Reggie Hart.
Barry is why I'm going. He always invites me, and all I get to do is sit there and listen.
And I believe, Benny, you're going to attend if you can.
Yes, I believe it's in Lutz, which is about 25 minutes from me. So what the hell?
The Residence Inn.
Yeah, I mean, with that all-star lineup, I really shouldn't miss it as a wrestling fan since 1968. Got to go see it.
And being that close, right? I mean,
right, exactly.
We'll have to make it one year to maybe, that's what the WFIA is trying to do is an in-person convention next year in accordance with Mr. Herb Simmons and his SICW Fan Fest every year. So hopefully we'll get that going. But before we get into a couple of questions with Mr. Cook, guys, Benny, why don't you roll our footage on him?
Bob Cook, here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Wrestling fans, this main event is scheduled for one fall. Introducing first at a weight of 245 pounds from Sarasota, Florida, Bob Cook.
To say you would be fearful about signing an open contract for any of your men to face Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah.
Bob Cook.
Don't worry, you just keep talking. I always show up.
145 pounds.
wrestling legend Bob Cook. How are you, sir?
Legend. I like the sound of that. Not true, but I like the sound of it. Well, that part's true.
I consider that. I mean, you've had quite the legendary career in my eyes.
I wrestled a lot of legends, so if that counts for anything, then I'll go with that one.
Let's talk about your beginnings as if you're.
So there's a little footage for you, Mr. Cook.
Well, I would say that was exciting, but my nose would grow.
The Pinocchio effect.
Well, my question, I'll start it off, Mr. Cook. I'm looking at your name, math superstar number 2. You were somewhere. What was about that?
I was here in Florida. The great Malenko found the guy who was going to put together a TV show, and he called me and he says, "Hey, I want you to be the math superstar on the show, and I want you to be the top heel and feud with my son Dean." And of course, I said, "No, what are you, crazy? I don't want to do that. It's stupid." No, I said, "Yes, sir," and did it, and I had a lot of fun doing it.
Cool. Mike, go ahead.
So, question for you: as far as the travel, where else what other territories did you work at the time? Like different cities, I'm talking about. I know you said North
cities.
Well, you were more local then to that particular area in Florida.
Well, I wrestled all over Florida, especially when you started wrestling for Championship Wrestling from Florida in '86, and before that, we were just doing indie shows everywhere. I mean, the first show I ever did was in Tampa. And then the second show was like 3 hours north of Tampa. So, we wrestled all over Florida.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that area. I lived in Port Charlotte for a little while. So
I live in Inglewood, which is almost in Port Charlotte. And I lived in Port Charlotte like a year and a half ago or something. But I lived in Northport for since 1975. What is that? 72 years.
Yeah. And Benny, they gotta be close to you or what?
I'm about 25 miles from Tampa, so I'm in Pasco County, actually. Don't hold it against me.
Yeah, well, we
so
won't.
I do have a question for Mr. Cook. As far as wrestling, like as far as your partners that you had to wrestle, actual people that you wrestled, who was your favorite to wrestle with or work with, and who might have been like one of your? And I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but somebody you wouldn't have liked to have repeat matches with.
It's not a whole lot that I didn't like to work with. There's a few that I ended up, like Bill Kazmaier, this strongest man in the world. He was a real jerk, and he was not a great wrestler, and he was only there for the money, which, hey, we all are, aren't we? That's why I'm rich. I'm just kidding.
Definitely not a great wrestler.
No, and he wasn't. He was an arrogant guy walking around. He looked like he was a mongoloid looking freak, and he was just an arrogant guy. So I didn't want to wrestle him again. But the person I liked wrestling the most was the guy that I trained. His name was Rick Ryder. He lives, in this area. But we had so much fun back in the 80s and 90s, and the semi-main event and main event matches in indie shows, cage matches, chain matches, death, any kind of match you could imagine we had, and it was just so much fun as far as people that you wouldn't have heard of. But the person I like to wrestle the most that you've heard of was Dean Malenko. He is the best wrestler I've ever been in a ring with by far.
The man of 1,000 holds. Yeah, man, he was top notch.
But the list of wrestlers that I love working with, is really long. But you said the best or favorite, so there you go.
Thanks a lot.
Over WCW or NWA, WCW, and even WWF, Mr. Cook, you were all around. At least those two big organizations and a lot of people. How was Mr. Crockett versus Mr. Bischoff, let's say?
Well, Bischoff wasn't running WCW when I was there. He was doing more than, if he wasn't showing it as much. He was doing he was a commentator. I think he was a commentator and did those little,
he did
update shows and different things. But he wasn't the one totally in charge at that point. But he was always nice to me. He was always cool. But Crockett was an arrogant jerk. The only good Crockett, what I like to say, is Jackie Crockett. He was the cameraman. He passed away a couple years ago. But he was a great guy. He was one of the boys, as they say. He'd party with you after the show and be approachable. And Jim Crockett and David Crockett walk around with their nose in the air. Unless you were one of the big stars, they'd treat you a little better because they were marks anyways. For the big stars. But don't
Benny.
let David Crockett see this because he's still alive. She could talk about those other people because they're dead. See how you do that?
Oh boy. Okay, Benny, you're up.
Yeah, I want to ask Bob the same question I asked Greg last week. So, Bob, you were born in 63, right? 1963?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I got you. I'm 55. Born in 55, not 55. But
Oh, I was going to say, damn.
so, yeah, if you were born 1953 instead, and you came into wrestling right smack dab in the territory days in their heyday, was there a particular? I would picture you as like a Len Denton, the grappler, where like you went from place to place and you picked up a shitload of belts, and you're always like really, really solid. Was there a place maybe you would have wanted to work?
I grew up on Florida wrestling, so if you take it back and, I don't know, I probably would have never even got in wrestling back if I was born then. Who knows? You know how wrestling has changed over the years. Like if I became a fan, I probably wouldn't have become a fan in like the 1950s or 60s, because wrestling in the 70s was just so much different than it was then. As it changes over the years. And I fell in love with it in, 1975 and what it was there here in Florida. But I just, probably big time wrestling out of Detroit because I always loved the Sheik and just that whole
Sheik, yeah,
character.
maybe WWA, maybe
WWA. No. Like Dick the Bruiser.
And the Great Wojo and those guys.
No, I always loved the term big time wrestling. I lived in Michigan. I was born in Michigan, so I lived there the first 11 years of my life, but I never watched wrestling much because everybody told me it was all fake when you watched that crap. And as a kid, I was more into Evel Knievel and stuff at that point in my life. And I just didn't get into wrestling until I moved to Florida in 75 when I met, a kid who introduced me to wrestling. His name was Dale Deibler. I always like to remember that or mention that because I still remember his name.
Wow, cool. And you got another story there, Benny, right?
Well, I wanted to ask because I have a story. Yes, so I was in my prior life. I was in a prior podcast that I don't want to mention the name of because it was abysmal. But one of the positives out of it was that the gentleman who hosted the show gave me the phone number of Terry Funk. Oh. And at first I thought it was a rib. I was going to get some guy that because a lot of people imitate Terry Funk. Not me, but a lot of people can.
God damn right they do.
Yeah, that's
son of
right.
a bitch.
Who the hell is the right? So I thought I was going to get ribbed. So I call, and you could tell it was him. And this was right after I guess he had a hip replacement, but I think he had also been diagnosed with dementia. And I from what I was told, he was very self-conscious about that. So I said, well, Terry, I just want to wish you well in your with your health issues. And he really got, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, you just had a hip replacement. And, he goes, oh, yeah, I'm doing all right. And I said, well, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate how you sacrificed, your body to provide me with thousands of hours of entertainment. And I want to tell you that there's probably 1 million people who would tell you the exact same thing that I just told you. And he goes, that was the nicest thing that anybody ever said to me. And I had a nice chat with him for a couple of minutes. But I know, Bob, you have a couple of stories with Terry Funk as well.
I love Terry Funk. I'm wearing a Terry Funk t-shirt right now and an Evel Knievel hat. Two of my favorite people to ever walk the earth. Back before I met them, if they said, Bob, you have two choices. You could be Terry Funk and Evel Knievel or Jesus Christ himself. I'd say, sorry, Jesus, the Funker and Evel went out. But anyways, yeah, Terry was awesome to me. I got his phone number too. So there, a lot of good it does now. But yeah, Terry was always cool. He's the one who gave me the nickname the Cooker, which maybe he was just ribbing me. I don't know, but it stuck in 1986. And if you ever saw those boots I used to wear a lot,
right,
they look like cowboy boots with the tennis shoes on the bottom. Terry gave me those boots because he used to wear those all over the place. And they're not even wrestling boots, but they were so cool. I liked them. And I still have them. I wore them the other day when I wrestled because I'm stupid. I can't quit at my age. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, matter of fact, yeah. What promotion or are you? Where are you wrestling still, sir?
Well, it's in Inglewood, Florida. A thing we call Twisted Wrestling Alliance.
Okay.
It started out. It was tied in with there's a restaurant down the road called the Twisted Fork, and we ran a show there 2 or 3 years ago, and so that's why we stuck with the Twisted because they've been really good to us as sponsors and different things. So we're just doing a kind of a little studio type wrestling show. And I also do wrestling training on Sundays, which I Absolutely hate. But I soldier on because that's the kind of guy I am. I like to live in miserable times, and the more miserable I can be, the better it is. So it's Sundays at 2:00. Come and make me miserable.
Step inside the squared circle with Mr. Cook for about a 15-minute time limit, right? Mike,
Yeah,
another question?
Yeah, I got a question for you. Ever think about doing a kind of your own comedy variety show?
Yeah, right. The only thing
not?
funny about me is my looks. Like someone mentioned that the other. I think it was on Andrew's show, Andrew Anderson's show, where he said you should be a comedian, you stand-up comic. I said, well, my knees are bad, so I'd have to do it sitting down. But maybe call it something else.
So you'd be a sit-down
Comic tour.
There you
Yeah,
go.
they could hold it if they had phone booths. They could hold it in the phone booths, and they still wouldn't have a line to get in.
Wow. So let's go. What about working for the Mr. McMahon there in those days?
It was great. I mean, everybody there was cool. WCW was cool too. The only difference between the two was WCW was more chaotic. You'd go in a room with Magnum T and Mike Graham, and you're who you're wrestling. They'd tell the guy, okay, this is the finish, blah blah, and then you go somewhere else, and someone else would tell you something else to do, and then you go somewhere else, someone tell you something else to do. Then you go to the ring, do it, and come back, and they go, why didn't you do this? It's like it was a lot more chaotic. Whereas when I worked for the WWF in 1995, it was just more laid back, better organized, I guess you'd say. Might explain why a lot of it they're still in business. I don't know. But Vince was always cool. I mean, I didn't speak to him much, but when I did see him, he would say, how you doing? He would say, hey, thanks for coming, put me over on commentary, when he would call the matches I was in.
That's cool.
Like Jim Ross always did, who was great about that.
Yeah, I was going to ask then, what about like Pat Patterson, Gorilla Monsoon and all them?
I don't remember meeting Gorilla Monsoon. Patterson was always cool. No incidences, if that's what you're getting at.
No,
but I wish I was good looking enough to have a pass made at me. Maybe I would have been a bigger star. Damn it! No, but he was always cool to me.
Yeah,
everybody was. I tell you, I always tell the same stories when people ask me these things. But when I worked for the WWF in '95, the guy that most people thought was polarizing and has a bad reputation, and he does, but that doesn't matter. My experience with him, Shawn Michaels, was cool as hell. He was laid back, happy-go-lucky. And guess who wasn't? Bret Hart. Bret Hart was walking around every show I was at, acting like he was the most miserable person on the planet, and probably was, never happy, never smiling. Whereas Shawn was always goofing around, just having fun. So there,
yeah, I've heard some stories about some of his pranks. Can you elaborate on some of those?
No one ever pranked me except Terry Taylor. I've never been someone who was ribbed, which is good. I like to fly under the radar. I've never saw the prank, so yeah. I mean, Terry Taylor played a little prank on me once, but it was a good-hearted one, and that's it that I can remember as far as what do you call ribs. I was never a ribber guy. I was never a guy that liked to cause drama either. I like to show up on time, do what I was told, have fun with my circle of friends. I used professional wrestling as my escape from the real world. Like I tell people all the time, when I got in the car to leave, I was no longer married. I no longer had a kid talking back to me. I no longer had bills to worry about. I was in a different world, and that's what I used wrestling for. I didn't bring the drama with me like a lot of guys do nowadays, it seems. It's all over the internet. Must be true.
Well, we got to understand that at that time when you wrestled, there was no internet, so they didn't have that additional drama. And I think kind of the internet has kind of spoiled some of that mystique about wrestling because, it's already advertised everywhere. You've got all these different things about predetermined results, and I don't agree with any of that. I think that's garbage, if you ask me.
Well, nobody's a fan now. Everybody's an analyst,
Yeah, that's it. They don't watch it because they love the product. They watch it because they like to voice their opinion as to what they would do better or what should be done. And I don't even do that. I mean, once in a while, if I'm not in the mood to watch wrestling, I could be more critical because I'm not always in the mood. But I love watching, today's wrestling just as much as, well, not just as much as the old days because I was younger. But I like watching it. I don't be as critical as some people are. What's the point? Because the people in the business now have just as much love and passion for it as we did in my day, and they're doing it the way they're told to do it. And God bless them if he would take his time to do it. Let me think here. Little Johnny just died after 6 months of chemotherapy in his mother's arms at 9 years old. But God bless the wrestling fans. Okay, we'll go with that.
What about what do you think of the NWA and Billy Corgan? Still, making a go of it. I liked it when they started the studio though there with NWA Power, but I know they branched off since.
Yeah, when that first started, I thought that was going to be cool because it brought me back to what I watched, out of TBS and different studio wrestling like we're trying to do here. And then they just kind of went off the rails. It was, it started out being cool, but then it wasn't serious. It just turned into like a joke. I don't even watch it anymore because the only place you can actually watch it is on X. That's a hell of a deal. It used to be on YouTube where you literally have like 3+ billion potential viewers. But let's take it and put it somewhere where you can only watch it on your phone. Now, obviously, you can mirror it to your TV, but who wants to go to that extra effort? Not me.
Yeah, no, I watched it on their YouTube, and I watched it. They had some shows on the CW, but now they're just on X only.
Yeah, they were on CW for a while, and like probably the WWE's deal with NXT. Maybe put the kibosh on that. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. I wasn't thinking about
I don't
that.
know I don't even know the inner workings of what goes on around here. So I certainly don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. What about any of the promotions you worked for? What were some of like the big name arenas that you liked and remembered being in?
Well, I loved working at the Mid-South Coliseum there for when I wrestled in Memphis or for Memphis wrestling a little bit in 87, 88. And then, yeah, those were the years I was there doing that. And that was so much fun just because I'd grew up loving Jerry the King Lawler as a kid. And he would come to Florida once in a while. I brought his feud with Terry Funk here in 80 or 81, whenever it was. And I followed him through the magazines or whatever. So to wrestle at the Mid-South Coliseum, and that had an amazing, the ring had such a great sound in that building. It was just so much fun. But here, like in Florida, the Bayfront Center in St. Pete, which is no longer here, thanks to Benny, but it was an awesome place to wrestle because it was like our Madison Square Garden. It was about half the size, but it was kind of round like the Garden. And when it was packed, it was amazing. Even as a kid, I used to love, I used to have a little 110 camera. And I'd go to the shows, and when there was a big crowd, I'd take pictures of the line of cars coming in, because a lot of my friends or people who didn't like wrestling, I always was like, why don't you like it? I don't understand why you like it. So I always would, publicize when it was popular, like publicize, like we didn't have the internet then, but, take pictures, go, look at this. They had a line a mile long.
Right. Yeah. I was at the Bayfront Center for Slamboree 95. It was May 95. I was there. So yeah, it was a cool place.
Yeah, it was. It's gone now, then replaced by the Dolly Museum, whatever that is. Jeez. And I'm not talking Dolly Parton, or there'll be a couple of reasons to go there. Oh, he threw it out there. He threw it out there.
I thought that was so where are the Tampa Bay plays? The baseball team.
What? Well, they have the Tropicana Field there, but the hurricane ripped the roof off it, so they're not playing there now. I don't watch baseball. I just saw it on the news last night. They're playing at George
Steinbrenner Field, the Yankees Florida State League stadium.
But it probably works out well because I don't think they draw very well, so that'll probably be a perfect place for them.
No, it'll actually look like the stadium's crowded when they play now.
Right.
Wow.
But they had where was it? They had the Royal Rumble at Tropicana Field a couple years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was there 95. That's another thing. I was there 2 pay-per-views. WWF Royal Rumble 95 at the Sun Dome in Tampa, and I
wrestled there.
Slamboree 95 at the Bayfront. So
that was a cool place too. The Sun Dome. Terry Funk wrestled Hulk Hogan there for Saturday night's main event, and I was there. Oh, nice. It was awesome.
Wow.
That's right. Early 86 there, yes.
That got killer ratings too.
What a small ring though. Remember that ring was like to the floor, like on Georgia Championship Wrestling in the studio.
Well, that was a local ring. Dean Malenko was one of the guest referees. I don't want to say guest referees because he wasn't as well known, but he was one of the referees on that show. And if you watch that show, how it worked, a lot of people were always confused. Like, why are the ropes different order of color? Halfway through the show, what happened was early in the night, the ropes broke. So they replaced the middle rope that broke with the bottom rope and put the middle rope on the bottom rope because you don't hit the the bottom rope. So, that's why it wasn't red, white, and blue the whole show.
Right. Well, now that you say that, yeah, I mean, I was wondering that myself, but wow, what is that?
That's the secret. Somebody broke it. I don't remember who, but
Wow. So what else other than the Mid-South Coliseum? I mean, you've been almost everywhere.
Well, I mean, especially here in Florida, going to Robarts Arena in Sarasota as a kid, the Lee County Civic Center, the Miami Beach Convention Center. I wrestled at the Orange Bowl in Miami once in '87 against Scott Hall. Made the most money I ever made for one match in that one. It was part of the Great American Bash. And I wasn't even supposed to be on the show. I just showed up. Me and my friends, the guy I was talking about that I like to wrestle the most, Rick Ryder. Him, me, and a guy named Robbie Ida went to the show because we were working for Championship Wrestling in Florida at the time. We just weren't booked on that big show. But, you're always taught to bring your bag. And I got there, and as soon as I got there, Kevin Sullivan said, "Bobby, you got your stuff?" Because he always called me Bobby. And I said, "Yes, I do." And he goes, "Well, you work in Scott Hall." And I was like, "Okay." That was awesome. Match was like 2 minutes. It's one of those where I attack him, I reverse it, power slam, leg drop, 1, 2, 3. Thing of beauty. But it was the most money I ever made for one match.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was like a $49.99, and then they took out the taxes. And anyways, it really was the most money for one match, but it was a lot of fun. And Scott was always cool to me. So there you go.
Yeah. Wow. So you walked in as a fan to watch it, and they called you to wrestle it.
Well, not really a fan because we didn't have to pay to get in, but we just weren't booked on the show.
Right. Wow. Mike, Benny, any more questions for our guest?
I'd be curious to Bob's opinion on this. So not Scott, but Tony Khan recently announced that I think the April 16th episode of AEW Dynamite, I think he's calling it Spring Breakthrough, is going to officially break exceed the number of episodes from Monday Nitro. And I wanted Bob's opinion. Like, can you even compare the two shows?
No, but I mean, it's something to brag about, even though, because your company's still in business and they're not. Obviously, that's just what they call semantics. It's going to happen because if your show runs a year longer, you're going to have 52 more episodes in general based on logic. But, at any time now you can brag about something, even though there's always going to be someone who just goes, who cares? It's not the same. But it's not the same, but it's not something you can't brag about. I don't watch a whole lot of AEW other than like I have the remote in my hand. I go, doot, 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 doot. Then Megan Bain comes on and I go, doot, doot, let's watch. I like Megan Bain. And Penelope Ford.
Well,
I'm superficial.
Just like guys, I can't believe other than back in the day when the NWA did their cards at the Greensboro Coliseum back, for Thanksgiving night and then Starrcade eventually, but they're having WrestleMania on Easter weekend and Easter Day. I mean, I still can't get over that. Why did they book it like that?
Well, I mean, that used to be a big deal by having them on those. I wrestled Arn Anderson at the Greensboro Coliseum. I just thought I'd throw that out there. But who knows why they do things?
One of my favorite places, Greensboro. I love that place.
I don't think the WWE cares if a few people are like, well, it's on Easter. Why am I'm not going to watch it. It's Easter. Like Easter means anything. It's like
they got plenty of paying heathens, right?
But they got their match or they got their money for Mania, wherever it is, Las Vegas. They got that big money. They got, the millions of dollars at the gate, the millions of dollars at the merchandise. They don't care. It's all about the money, which is what it should be. Don't get me wrong. So when it is, why wouldn't you watch it just because it's Easter? What are you going to do? Sit around all day? I mean, it comes on at night. What are you going to do? Just because it's Easter, you're just going to go, well, I don't know. It's Easter. I guess I'll just watch something else, even though I got nothing else to do. What's the difference? Well, you're going to stare at the TV, might as well stare at the wrestling.
Yeah, to be honest with me, I think that's actually a good time to have it because I'm sorry, I'm in the house. It's just like think about Thanksgiving. We got football games. Okay,
right?
You've got 3 different. That's you got to have something to do if you're going to be at home.
Why not? You got Christmas football. You got New Year's.
Now I wouldn't do it, but there's probably a lot of people that will have family over for Easter. So you're going to have like people just crowding together watching the show.
Yeah.
Right? Or not. What do I know? And if you don't watch it on Easter, watch it the next day. It's going to be on what they call the Peacock, right? So you can fast forward, you can rewind, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, they're still doing the pay-per-views. Pay-per-view to me, PLEs on Peacock, and they didn't even switch them over to Netflix yet. I'm surprised
Well,
about
that's
that. Benny.
because that's the structure of the the Peacock had their contract until 2026. So you can't just all of a sudden go, well, so much for that. But the rest of the world gets it on Netflix. It's only in America. And I like the fact that Peacock is still around until the 2026 because you still get the WWE Network until then.
Right.
And they'll probably come up with a deal and continue it on Peacock. Who knows? They still got time to negotiate.
I think they should. I mean, the WWE Network was great, and they started off awesome, and then it went right down the hill. But
well, it's still there. It's great. You can still go there. You can still watch it. Everything's there.
Yeah, it's still there, but they don't have what it is they just moved all the live events off of it. That's it. It's still around.
Well,
is it?
I mean, the classic.
Well, the Peacock. You're talking the WWE. Well, like I think Raw.
WWE, I believe, right?
Raw's not on the network anymore, but all the other stuff's still on the network. Raw, and I think NXT's not there anymore, but you can watch that on Peacock and different places. Because a lot of NXT shows on their new deal with Tubi, whatever it's called.
Tubi, yeah.
Or not to be.
But the WWE Network, there's still all the programs are there, everything. On Peacock. I like to call it the WWE Network. The only thing I didn't like about Peacock is when they switched from the traditional network was the search. You could type in Terry Funk search on the old network and everything that Terry was on, whether it was a talking segment or a match or a clip, it would pop up. So it would say 400 Terry Funk things are on, but you can't do that with Peacock, but that's life.
Right. They edited a lot of footage too that you won't see anymore either.
I don't know about that. What they edit? I don't hear nothing about that. You can still go see any Chris Benoit match you ever wanted to see. People say they canceled him. They didn't cancel nothing. You just can't search for him, but it's there. Like if he was in a main event of the show or the first match in the show, it's still there. Just go watch it.
Wow. Benny, let's roll our classic clip number 1. And before we do, my disclaimer, this footage is my personal library, my collection. I don't sell it. I don't rent it. I don't copy it to nobody. And I do clip it for the purpose of this show. And let's enjoy clip number 1, sir.
Was this Ernie Ladd, the great Ernie Ladd?
The great Ernie Ladd, sponging off of your show last night. Yes.
The Big Cat. Yes, sir.
We're going to bring you as much of this match as our TV time will allow. Boy, listen to these fans scream as Ladd is getting up. Ladd is getting up to his feet. He is up. He's fought his way back to his feet. And these 12,000 fans are screaming.
307 pounds. Let's hear it for Big Ernie Ladd.
Well, hi again, everybody. This is Jack Reynolds at ringside along with Big Tex McKenzie. And we're right back with more exciting action on International Championship Wrestling. The big guy from...
The big guy right now, T-Bolt, Mr. Ernie Ladd.
Well, he's kind of summing up quite well as far as I'm concerned. You got to bring some meat to get some meat. I think Bolt's got enough meat and I have enough meat. And when you come, don't come for no Sunday school meeting. Come for a brawl. We come to do a little bit of any and everything they want to do.
His tag team partner out of Houston, Texas, weighing in tonight at 307 pounds, the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd. And their opponents, ladies and gentlemen, making their way toward the ring right now. With a combined weight of 567 pounds, they are the International Wrestling Association World Tag Team Champions, Bolo and Guido, the Mongols, along with their manager, George Crybaby Cannon.
The belts are on the line right now. There's the bell. And ladies and gentlemen, this match is officially underway.
Wow.
Some classic footage there, Ernie Ladd. You should have used last night on your show, Benny, with Nikita.
It's really weird seeing him as a baby face in a couple of those clips, but I got to laugh. I'm thinking, what the guy was so far ahead of his time. He talked about Ivan Putski, and he said he stayed up all night studying for a drug test. He was the king of one-liners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ernie Ladd had an awesome feud here in Florida with Dusty Rhodes when Ladd came in as a babyface. I think it was around 1977. And then he turned heel on Dusty as a kid. You know, it was just amazing stuff. And Ladd, to me, is one of my favorite heels, you know, of all time. You know, he was just great. Never got to meet him, but he was great. And by the way, who knows who the Mongols were? I bet those wrestling fans out there just went, well, that's a stupid name, but I bet they don't know who they were.
Well, I know one. I'm sure Benny, you know one.
Well, and one of them was Nikolai Volkov, the original Mongols.
And the other one was Bill Eadie, who went on to become
Right.
the Masked Superstar, Demolition, you know.
Yeah.
But your average wrestling fan today wouldn't know that.
No, not at all. And the Mongol, I liked them back. I mean, that was great, a great tag team too. Not just their look, you know, and with the belts, but they wrestled a great tag team. IWA, yeah.
Before they were the international tag team champions for the WWF in 1970, and that was Nikolai and a guy named Newton Tatry, Beppo Mongol, and they were like virtually unbeatable. Yeah, great tag team.
Wow. And Mike, the Big Cat Ernie Ladd was, I believe, right, guys, one of the first football/wrestlers too.
Well, you had Wahoo, I think, started a couple of years before him, Wahoo McDaniel. And I think it was because of Wahoo that Ernie got in, because Wahoo was making 18 grand playing for the New York Jets. And he figured he could probably triple that wrestling. And he did. And then Ernie for Ernie Ladd's first, I think, his last 6 years as a football player from 63 to 68, he would wrestle through June, like January through June, and then he played football, you know, from July through December. And then in 69, he started wrestling full time. But same thing, he found out there was way more money in wrestling. How weird is that, though? You could make way more money back then as a professional wrestler than as a football player.
Wow.
I also believe you have to look
crazy.
into it,
We'll
but
look at the salaries now.
I think Dick the Bruiser did it before them as well. I think he was a pro
played for
football
the
player.
Packers, yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that one. But a lot of them. I mean, right? Goldberg, Atlanta Falcons.
Well,
and then
most of the guys who say they played football, like Tito Santana said he played for the Chiefs. Well, he was in their training camp. You know, Lex Luger played for the USFL for a team. You know, Orndorff played, I think, in the USFL. Nothing really of note. Like, you would not have said, "Oh, wait, I saw you play football." Now, Wahoo and Ernie Ladd, absolutely, I knew them from TV. But most of these guys, Leon White even played for the Van Vader, played for the Rams, but I don't remember him from football.
I don't either. Not for football, but
there's a guy I didn't like.
Big Van Vader, Leon White, the baby bull, right back in the AWA.
Why didn't you like him, Bob?
One of the biggest jerks ever to walk the planet Earth, and that's a lot of walking. Think about history. Billions of people have lived and died, and he was one of the biggest, fattest jerks to ever walk the planet. Unbelievable.
Let me ask you a question about him. Do you think it had to do with the face mask? Maybe it was too much pressure on his face?
No.
He
was a jerk outside the ring. He didn't wear the mask outside the ring. He was a jerk in the dressing room. He was a jerk in the bars. Although I'll say one time. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, I'm thinking because it was pressed against the ring. I don't know. Did it cut off blood circulation or something with this guy?
Oh, well, yeah. That might be his excuse.
Did not look very comfortable at all.
That might be his excuse, but I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt you because this hurts me. No, that's not how it works.
Okay. So basically you're saying he wrestled very stiff.
He hurt
and
guys.
He was an idiot,
there's a difference between being stiff and hurting guys week after week. He broke a guy's back, for God's sake. Remember that guy, Joe Thurman? I was the next match out after he did that. I got to wrestle the Z-Man, which, by the way, was awesome. He was easy as could be. But he broke this guy's back, for God's sake, doing a power bomb.
Okay, so in that kind of instance, so what does the promoter do with that wrestler if he's unsafe? I mean, if he's that bad, don't they just...
Nah, well, back in those days, I don't know what they really do, but they kept telling him, Leon, stop hurting guys, stop hurting guys, stop hurting guys. And he'd just keep doing it. Who knows?
So
he
didn't care. That's basically what
you're saying.
saying.
And he didn't just hurt the TV losers like me and whoever, but he hurt a lot of the big guys, you know? stars, I should say. Look what he did to Cactus Jack and different guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not
yeah,
talking
right.
about the ear thing. That was Jack's doing.
Right.
That wasn't
Yeah,
Vader's
not
doing.
the ear thing. Right on the TV in Center Stage Atlanta. I mean, he really dropped him on that concrete floor.
Well, that's Jack. He likes that stuff. So you can't argue with him. He likes doing that crazy stuff. But just Vader, he just hurt guys all the time. That's the point. But there was one time he did something good. After a show in Jacksonville, Florida, we're all in this bar where we would all party. Everybody's in there. And the bartender says, "Last call." And Vader stood up and he said, "No, it's not." And the bar was open the rest of the night. So that was one of the good things he did.
There you go.
Wow. All right, Benny, let's roll our second clip, please, of the classic tag team, speaking of which, the Samoans.
There we go.
This is Jack Reynolds at ringside along with Big Tex McKenzie. We're set to go with another edition of International Championship Wrestling. Well, we got some outstanding professional stars that will be team competition in our program today. And a couple of new faces, Big Tex, hailing from the...
Really looking forward to this match. The Cuban Assassin, I saw wrestle last week. He's very, very aggressive. I was really pleased with his performance. Great wrestler. Bob, this should be a great match. I saw this Cuban Assassin wrestle last week, and also Troy Graham did very, very well. They should give the Islanders a pretty good battle.
Look out, Abdullah the Butcher has come in. He's got a board. Abdullah the Butcher has come in. He has got the Islander, Sika Anoya. He's thrown him down on the announcer's desk. He is choking. He is choking. Anoya, he is grabbing the clock. He has got the bell. He has got the clock. He is choking.
Here goes the clock.
Noahi brothers. That is Sika in the ring first, and here comes his brother, Afa. Sika and Afa on Noahi. Both from Samoa, the combined weight of 585 pounds. This is Buck Zumoff and the masked grappler, their opponents. Zumoff beautifully decked out. Zumoff at 225, the grappler at 238. They tell him no instructions.
From the island of American Samoa, Afa and Sika, the Islanders.
This is Jack Reynolds at ringside along with Big Tex McKenzie. We're set to go with another edition of International Championship Wrestling. Well, we got some outstanding professional stars that will be team competition in our program today. And a couple of new faces, Big Tex, hailing from the Isle of America.
Gonna have to figure out how to take a red Sharpie and put an X over Buck Zumhoff.
When I heard that name, I was like, oh.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing.
Gotta love that classic studio wrestling from back in the day. I mean, Benny, there's some footage you probably didn't see, huh?
That was a lot of that, I think, was the old IWA with Tex McKenzie. They used to wrestle out of Roosevelt, somewhere in New Jersey, actually, I think it was.
I heard that.
On Saturday nights. It was on midnight on Channel 9 from New York. Good stuff, though.
And so that was also from Amarillo. That was from San Francisco, as you mentioned, Mr. Cook. Big time Detroit. That was big time wrestling out of San Francisco territory there in the 70s. And the Islanders became the Samoans, right? So
right.
Some great footage there.
And Buck Zumhoff became number 019378, right?
Cell block C.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. All right. Well, Mike, why don't you take over now for our independent wrestler of the week?
Sure, absolutely. This week, our independent wrestler of the week is Sarah the Bully Jade. And this is a kind of a funny thing she does from her gimmick is the old L sign. So now she wrestles out of Top Rope Promotions, which is Fall River, and that is Spike Dudley is the head trainer over there. I don't know if you guys, obviously, you guys remember Spike Spike Dudley of the
heck
Dudley
yeah,
Boys.
of course.
Yes.
He was a great character, I thought.
Yes. So
Oh, yeah,
Sarah,
absolutely.
and then so there's another pitch there when she won
Yep,
the match. There we go.
There she is. Yeah, she can bully me anytime.
Oh.
Yeah. All righty. And also next, our next segment, Mike, take it over with our military salute of the week. Who do we have?
Sure. Our military service salute to the week is to Lacey Evans. She was Lacey Evans out of NXT and WWE. Her gimmick was as of military. Basically, it was kind of like a ripoff of no offense, but of Sergeant Slaughter. But again, it was a sergeant in the Marine Corps before that, and served in two separate campaigns. One, it was the second Gulf War, and the second was the war in Afghanistan.
But how ironic! Even Sergeant Slaughter wasn't that. Oh.
Yeah, well, apparently, I guess he criticized the gimmick, and I thought that's kind of unfortunate because she actually lived it, and nothing Sergeant Slaughter. Again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Sometimes a certain gimmick doesn't go over as well, but her claim to fame was she was number one in the Royal Rumble, and she lasted 29 minutes in her match. So that's pretty impressive.
I liked her. I mean, I liked her in the WWE.
She had a great punch for a woman. I don't mean just for a woman, but she had a good punch.
Yeah, I liked her there too, but what are you gonna do?
Well, I got a little bit of feedback on a little bit about what happened. She actually opted out of her contract, and now she actually runs a restaurant in, I believe it's, I'm sorry, South Carolina, Beaumont, South Carolina, or Beaufort, Science. I don't know the name of it, but she has her own restaurant now. That's what she's doing now. So
and OnlyFans. That's a nice income, I'm sure.
Out of the ring to owning a restaurant business. Well, they make a lot of money too, but
they do.
Not always.
I don't know about as much wrestling she could have made, but what are you gonna do?
Sometimes it's the stress. You go, maybe you just can't deal with it anymore. You want to go home, be with your family because she has kids and perhaps a husband she gets along with. I know that's not usual.
Opting out of the contract was because of her kids, basically. So, I mean, you got to understand, it's some of these businesses. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, me personally, if I'm a single man, I don't got to worry about any of that. These people that already come with families. I mean, it's how long do they honestly last in the business? It's kind of tough to say. Depends on if their kids are young. If you got older kids, it's not an issue.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with how they feel they're being treated too. I mean, they kind of changed her gimmick up so many times, and they'd push her, then not push her. And so, I mean, I wouldn't get frustrated as long as the checks kept clearing because I was never one of those guys that gave a crap what they did as long as they paid me. Anybody who quits because I'm not being used right. Well, guess what? If you're making $18,000 a week and that money keeps coming, who gives a crap? If they tell you to clean up in a locker room afterwards, grab a broom.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know the pay scales of what you guys get paid. I don't pay any attention to that. I pay attention to the product. I mean, but from behind the scenes, that's a pretty sizable income.
Well, I don't know about that much. I was just throwing a number out there. Everybody's different,
Well, yeah. Lot of money nowadays, but well, Benny, why don't you put up for our public service announcement of the week? We would like to have the Wounded Warrior Project. They do obviously great works. You see their commercial on TV a lot with the country singer Trace Atkins. I want to say not recommends, but he's a good activate for that company. And you can go to their website here, woundedwarriorproject.org. Obviously, the TV commercials, and if you can ever donate, it's definitely a worthy cause. So, again, our public service announcement of the week is the Wounded Warrior Project. And if you can, please donate that as a legit and a good cause. So, guys, for our second show, and we would like to thank our guest, Mr. Bob Cook. We appreciate your time. and being with us this week. And hopefully we'll have you back down the road.
Hey, thanks. And I also want to clarify when I said Vader was a jerk and different people, if I talk ill of them, that is my own personal experience. And I realize in life with billions of people on the planet that everybody has different experiences with different people. So if you had a different experience with him or anybody else, then that's wonderful. So that was only my experience and my opinion based on those experiences. So there, if anybody has a problem with it.
Understood completely. All
I
right.
agree with you
Well,
there. Good stuff.
all right. Well, guys, we'll see you next week. And we have some historians, Mr. George Shire, Mr. Barry Rose, and Mr. Reggie Harp will be joining us next week for our third show. And Benny, why don't you take us out of here? Take care, everyone.
There we go.
Take care.
So long
Thank
from
you.
the sun.